This is YouTube, normal YouTube. Okay.
It's time to get started again this morning. Welcome, everybody.
Got it. Morning.
Good morning.
And take a screenshot. These guys get billions.
Always like to start with a joke.
And
There was a
that's it.
husband and wife who decided they wanted to go see the Holy Lands, Jerusalem and Bethlehem and all that sort of thing. And his wife suggested they take their mother-in-law, his mother-in-law, her mother, and they go to the Holy Lands, and they on a tour and went somewhere overnight. The mother-in-law died, passed away. So they went to the mortuary, and the mortician said, "Well, we got two options here. For $500, she can be buried in the Holy Land. Or for $5,000, we can send her back to the States." He immediately said, "Let's send her back to the States." And the mortician said, "Well, that's awfully expensive. You sure you want to do that?" He says, "Hey, look, I heard a story about a guy dying about 2,000 years ago, rising up from the dead. I'm not taking any chances." Thank you for Anybody go to a museum yesterday and enjoy themselves? Good, good. I hope you had a good time. I know I did, and the guys that went with me, and that's what they were in awe by looking at the Steamship Arabia Museum. Okay. Is there any other announcements we need to make? Everybody's got a copy of the agenda. I guess at the end of this, we have a board meeting, and everybody can attend. I guess, right, Bruce?
Yeah, the board meeting is on the other side of the registration, all the way to the left.
Okay.
Where the board meeting will be. Yep. Yeah, at 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing was the FBO asked that you get your fuel orders into him today. They have limited capacity, and if everybody tries to do it on Sunday, there could be as much as a 2-hour delay to get your fuel. So we ask that you call him in with your fuel order today, so you can get ahead of the curve here.
Okay.
Even if it's just fill your main tanks, they can top off. That's the situation. They need that time. They don't have the capacity.
All right. There you go. Anybody else have anything they want to add to the? Yes, sir.
I was looking around what the phone number was for the FBO.
Phone number for the FBO. Anybody got that information?
Google.
Google, yeah, there you go. All right.
I'll find it.
Jimmy's our maintenance guru this year, and can help us sort of what he's seeing in the way of parts availability, things of that nature. Yeah.
I got the number if you're interested. If anybody's interested. 913-261-8345.
Executive aircraft service.
Correct.
Well, there's been a lot of stuff on back order lately. Last year we couldn't get oil filters. Simple oil filters. They work on every airplane. So it's not Aerostar responsibilities. But we can't get brake discs right now. There's no brake discs available, all 3 brands. We got Black Steel, we got Rapco, and Cleveland. You can't get any of them. So turbochargers. A couple people have kits, but they don't have housing. And now Hartzell bought the rights to the turbos a couple of years ago, right?
Right.
And Ken said that the 575s, all the aircraft had 575s, but I called them up for 603s for a Superstar, 803 for a Superstar the other day, and they didn't have any. I called my supplier, ATC, they didn't have any, no houses. Some of the filters have been on back order. The induction air filter that goes on the engine, that's been on back order. We were using Rapco. We went to Tempest, I think, to try to find some. But silly things are on back order. You just can't get them. And it's got nothing to do with Aerostar. It's just, doesn't matter what airplane it's for. It's stuff that we can't get. AC parts. Aircom bought the rights to keep, or whoever's JB, or but Aircom has the rights to it now. Can't get condenser fan motors, not available. So I called them twice and emailed them once about a compressor assembly. Never got back to me. And I just don't know what to do. If anybody's got any suggestions, especially with the AC stuff, because right now we cannot get condenser fan motors, just not available. The compressor assembly, I was selling used ones with a brand new compressor, but now I'm out of used ones, so we can't get the compressor assembly, the bearing, the pulley, and the bracket to convert the piston compressors to the radial compressor. Sand 505. The 505 is easy to get, but you can't get the bearings and the pulleys and the brackets. But I can get a steel bracket, but not the aluminum bracket. So I just don't know where to go with a lot of this stuff. And if you guys have any suggestions, I'd love to hear them. For a while, tires were on back order. This week they're not, but that doesn't mean anything for next week. Batteries were on back order. Simple battery. It didn't matter whether it's a Gill or a Concord. They were both on back order. Now this week we can get them. Doesn't mean next week we're going to be able to get them. I don't know. Vacuum pumps. Try to find a 241cc. There's you have to search around and try to find them. We found 441cc's the other day because we put two of them on an airplane that weren't correct. I think it's 441cc-17. But there's a lot of stuff that's got nothing to do with Aerostar that we just can't get. So, if anybody's got any suggestions where we can look or help anybody out, or maintenance people, or even just your stuff. But like I said, just simple stuff, unavailable.
Did anybody offer a common theme as to what was going on, or it was all over the map?
All over the map. Joel called the guy that owned Rapco to find out what's going on with this. He didn't even know, right?
Yeah, he didn't know. He looked into it. He's like, could be a problem looking into it. He's like, you're right. We don't have them. We can't get them. Like, we don't know why.
And nobody knows why. Go ahead, Roger.
Our airplane's in Prescott now, annual, and the nose wheel actuator O-ring in the front just slightly leaking, and they couldn't find it.
You can't buy that kit from Aerostar?
I told him to call Mockin.
Okay, because Aerostar should have all that stuff in stock.
I would think so. He's had a month to do it.
Well, I called Aerostar the other day for a hat section, and they don't have. They sold the last one. They don't have hat sections to be 2 months to get a hat section. It's okay. 2 months is 2 months, or at least it's available. But some of this stuff we just can't get, and I just don't know what to do, especially the AC parts. A lot of the other stuff is, the brakes I'm sure is going to be available someday. Who knows when? We got 3 manufacturers out there, and we still can't get brake discs. But there's got to be something breaking on that. The turbocharger. Why can't we get turbocharger housing? Ken said there's only one person making them now. So,
One person, yeah. I talked to Brandon, who's the manager of Montgomery turbocharger plant for Hartzell, and they lost their vendor several years ago. That was where they had one vendor building their turbine housings, the hot section housing, and he retired, or they retired, or whatever they did, and they've been looking around for several years for quality product and struggling to find it. And what he told me the other day was, we think we've solved it. And obviously, on the 600, 575 of the 601 Papa, we got 4 in the other day. And Dave Monquist received 4 in through Quality Aircraft Accessories, which is a subsidiary of Hartzell. But what Jimmy said, I haven't ordered any 600 803s. Joel, did you have any luck with?
No, they ran my credit card, so I called them up and said, it must have come in because you told me Dave got his, and they said, no, that's a mistake. We're going to be issuing a credit. I go, so they said that it was going to be end of August, but they still don't have them. And this has been 2.5 years, 2.5 years.
August, the end of October, and then you get to the end of that month, and what's going on with my stuff? Well, they got pushed back to another 2 months. Nobody has an answer. Nobody has a real answer.
So I think that there's been issues with them finding other vendors, and then when they get the actual parts in, they don't meet quality specs. So I think that's part of what is going on with them.
So that's what Aircom was telling us about the condenser fan motor.
We've had turbos on order for a year, and now we have 10 in stock.
Oh, so you got 803 turbos?
803 turbos.
Okay.
Yeah. The 601P turbos, no. Okay. But 803s, yeah, we have I think 4 of the 6 factory new ones, and then some factory overhauls. There's only about $1,000 difference. Yeah, but we've been waiting a year.
Yeah,
And we were holding our breath the whole time that we didn't have somebody grounded because we needed the turbo.
Well, I just put a used turbo on the Superstar the other day that I had just to get the guy going because it was pouring oil on the wastegate. So it was leaking out of the center section.
I do have a couple of 602 turbos. Not the overhaul, not the four. I have actually 2 new ones.
I've got one.
New ones at the moment. Like 7,200. We used to. They got a PMA. The manufacturer got a PMA years ago, and it was it was a good business for us because we were the source of them, and it's like $1,600 for a turbo. A lot of money, $1,600. Now it's
7,000.
Yeah.
But
Thanks, Jim.
price doesn't surprise me on anything. One of the guys that works for me said, "That's how much? It's available. Who cares? It's not available."
You want it, you don't.
Yeah. I mean, when you have to pay, you have to pay. It don't make any difference. But the stuff that's not available is a real problem right now.
Joel's had Joel's turbos. Thank God he
Had extras.
Listened to me early on and got a spare here.
2 spares, yeah.
He put the engines on his airplane and 2 turbos he had in stock, and you're able to get 2 at that time. But he's had them on order for more than 2 years, right?
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
So what do you do about 601 guys?
I had a set of turbos I sent out for a 601, 2 turbos, and it took maybe 6 months to get them back. It wasn't as bad as 2 years, and the guy was still flying the airplane. But I know one of the problems that with Aerostar is Joel buys everything. They have 10 motors. He wants all 10. It doesn't make any difference. He just,
What's the repairable situation? Overhaul what you've got, is that possible?
yeah, but with the turbos, you can't overhaul the turbos because they always find cracked housing. So, and then there's no housing.
There's an AD on that housing.
What's amazing is in the beginning, it was the bearing, the shaft, and that whole thing was the hold up.
That's on the high altitude turbos, which
Right.
is 575 and 803s.
Right.
Yeah.
But and then those came in, and then they said no housings. So
Are the other aircraft, the non-Aerostar aircraft in the fleet, seeing the same stuff?
Oh yeah, like a lot of stuff that's got nothing to do with Aerostar. Brake discs are the same on the Baron, I think, right? You said the turbos, they might be different. That might be Aerostar specific turbo.
I've got the problem with my trucks. I got Cummins fleet. I got 2 of them sitting for no turbos.
All right.
6-month backlog, they said.
Filters, I mean, we had a problem getting Champion oil filters and Tempest oil filters a year ago.
I was paying
and that fits
$100.
everybody.
I was paying $100 for a filter on eBay just to get an oil.
Just get another thing. So, and then the AC parts. The AC parts are the same in everybody's airplane. That was an aftermarket kit that Aerostar had put in. So, and we can't get them. I think Jim you bought a used motor for the new style.
But when we made our first air conditioning system, we looked around to find a condenser fan motor. Well, a condenser fan motor runs about 6,000 RPM.
But it moved faster than that, about 11,000, I think.
Well, the one we used, I think, was around 6,000. But when we first tried to source one, we said, well, there should be a lot of those available. Let's just go buy a condenser, an axial fan with we found one guy that said he could make us one for $3,000 back in 1978. Nobody had them, so we made our own. we cast our own axial fan, and we bought motors from a company in, I think it's in Canada, and the motors were $150. So we made our own fan and had a piece of irrigation pipe for the housing for the fan, and got it done. And now the plant has burned down that made the motors, and they don't want to make any more of those motors. They don't want to build a new plant to make those motors.
That's for the condenser fan motor that goes through the front of the condenser.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the one that sucks, the JD system,
Yeah.
that sucks through, the only thing you can do is get that thing overhauled or rebuilt.
Well, the problem with overhauling and rebuilding them is a lot of them, the center section is no good. So, because I gave a bunch of used ones to Joel, and you couldn't get them fixed, right?
Yeah, and then people like motor shops, they'll actually research what it's used on. And as soon as they find out it's anything to do with aviation, they would just be like, nope, we're not even touching it. I tried starting boat companies, like anything to try to get them to just help me out. And,
Well, I'll give you a perfect example, just a parking brake cable. I know you got them in stock, they're $800. But a parking brake cable, there's a company right down the street from me that makes cables. When they no longer make cables, you have to go to Miami to get the cable. The guy in Miami said, I won't make it because it's for an airplane.
Yeah.
It's a parking brake cable. I won't make it because it's for an airplane.
When I put new LEC hoses in my airplane for the 134A, I told the guy, he asked me why I needed so much, so what length, And I said, well, it goes in my airplane. Oops. End of story. He wouldn't tell it to me. So I had to have the guy I was working with go back and tell him it was for a boat,
The SUV or something.
Boat works.
Yeah.
I had customers
Well,
who
I
used
think-
it for
Didn't you
experimental.
tell me, Sandy, somebody bought a set of pillow blocks?
A couple of turbo kits.
The pillow block bearings, and it's for my airboat.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're an engineer boat now. That'd be a pretty fast one.
Jim, you're saying on the fan motor, you couldn't get the armature rewound? We
No,
won't touch it?
no.
I probably have somebody. I should try to do one for you, see if you'll do it.
Okay.
We got a harness shop that also rewinds. A pretty good guy though.
Well, Joel's got a bunch of, you still got them, the junk motors?
yeah, some of them I gave to a guy, and he ended up kind of screwing them up. They would last for 2-3 hours or something like that.
And then quit.
Found that I think Bob had one of them. We found that he didn't space the bearings right, and it started kind of coming apart, and the brushes were arcing, and so.
See, that's another problem too, is quality of anything you buy anymore. The quality is, if you're buying a lot of aftermarket stuff, the quality is not there. That was there 10 years ago.
Even new stuff, Jimmy, quality has gone down.
Well, that's what I mean.
After COVID, it's
It's just not what it was 10 years ago. Quality on anything. Even overhaul vacuum pumps. They put an overhaul vacuum pump on it, it'd go bad in 5-8 hours, 10 hours.
The motor you gave me, the guy said he couldn't find the brushes because he said they didn't know what style of brushes were. So
Well, they're high altitude brushes,
the
so,
brushes wore out.
and they're high altitude brushes, I know that. But if anybody has any ideas, where we can get some of this stuff either fixed or maybe even available.
Give me a couple of points. Brandon, who is the manager for Hartzell of the turbocharger, he says the priority is new production at Hartzell. So if you want turbos, when they're available, they're going to take care of their own needs first. Then they'll supply the ATCs and the Gary Mains and all those sort of guys later on with parts. But they're not going to get parts immediately. The first parts are going to be used internally to build new turbos and to take care of their needs for their customer. Which seems like a logical business decision to me. You take care of yourself first versus taking care of ATC.
Well, as long as the stuff's available when they start producing.
Right.
Right now, it's not available because you said that there's only one manufacturer making the hot section, right?
That's right. That's all, and that's what they did again. Was turn to another vendor. In fact, they've rejected 3 other vendors before they got to this guy, and supposedly they got the problem solved, according to Brandon, as of last in the last month.
But that's for all of them or just the 525?
So
The
far, it's
575.
the same housing on the 575 and the 803, the hot section housing. But yet, why the 803s are not available, it must be something else in addition to that.
I didn't think about calling Aerostar, but I did call Quality because you were just telling me about that. And I called them and didn't have any.
Yeah, right. Doug?
Do we have any, ends with the General Aviation Manufacturers Association? I'm just wondering what kind of information they may have. Or are they like way too big for us, or they're
They got the same story going on that we've got.
Well, I mean, because they're kind of an industry consortium, or
Yeah, but most of these parts fit everybody's airplane. It's not just Aerostar. It's everybody's airplane.
Oh, right, yeah. It's just, I mean, if there's a quality problem as well as a supply problem, I would think that they would be part of that discussion in a very big way.
What is everybody doing with National Air Parts alternators these days? Anybody still running National Air Parts alternators? Me too.
Well, I still got National Airport on my head.
Yeah. The guy out of Louisville, Kentucky.
About fixing them.
The FAA came in and shut him down.
I talked to him and he agreed to, I said, I don't need any paperwork, just look at it, fix it. And he did.
He did take care of you?
Yep.
Huh.
But you have to talk him into it.
You go in the middle of the night.
I think Joel's put plane powers on and rewiring them.
Yeah.
We're on the National Air Parts lane, basically. We've had nothing but problems, and the weird thing with them is they're not consistent problems.
Yeah.
One time we fly, everything will be fine. Next time the load sharing is off, or the voltage is off, something is off. We pulled them off, had 3/8 of an inch of slop in the bearings and stuff. I've had them melt. I've had them blister the paint. They got so hot. You can see right where the paint was blistered, it was like a wire went through it, and it was shorting against something. The quality control.
Well, Don just had 2 of them go bad. 2 of them, double alternator failure.
There I was, 20,000.
There he was.
Yeah, I had the housing, or the bracket break, and that's actually part of the alternator, and so there isn't a part number for it. So, but I think Ken, you said you have some, and I think there's some around because people.
I got some old alternators laying around.
Yeah.
And that's what I gave Jim.
But,
the old alternators.
So I replaced
Would have
both.
broke
I
the
did
bracket, I think.
Yes. It
was part of the housing that was broke.
So I did the plane power, and Joel redid because I had the old style with relays in the back and all that. So he did it.
Joel, what are you doing with plane power and the engine-driven air conditioning system?
Well, we don't have a fix for that yet.
Okay.
So that is one of the downsides to the plane power. There's a bunch of upsides, but the one downside is the right engine alternator. One thing that we found that is actually helping also is just putting the plane power regulators in. The one thing that the regulators do is, it's kind of integrates the alternator fail switches. Some of the early ones don't even have them, so now we can add alternator fail lights pretty easily, things like that. We get rid of the overvolt relay. We get rid of the little black fuse holders in the back for the fuel.
Have you got a PMA or something for that yet?
I didn't hear that.
Because the regulators weren't.
A little lower.
I didn't put them in.
Paperwork. Nobody needs any paperwork. Customer supplied.
Anything like that, and you kind of have to sit there and say, well, just because it's not maybe certified for an Aerostar, if it's 100% safer.
Oh no, I agree 100%.
Yeah. We rewire them like I think it actually says 83 and up Aerostars, where you put the fuel right on the buses. Because you have to. I think you found that out. You have to basically be able to supply power. You can't use the isolation diode.
Yeah, you got to put power to the regulator, otherwise, the alternator will start up But then if you shut the alternator off while the engine's running and turn it back on, it doesn't come back online.
Yeah, so you gotta, so.
And it's
but
gotta
a
have a
minor-
fuse.
It's a minor change, and the thing is now you've got, instead of your fuel, fuses in the back behind the 176 panel where no owner actually knows where they are, now they're in the panel. So if you have one pop for some reason or whatever, in Joel's case, the old alternators had the grounds and the power for the fields going through the alternator switches. So you had extra wiring, extra terminals. I mean, it's just, so we simplified the whole system. And, by simplifying it, the theory is that they're going to be more reliable.
It's gonna make it better.
And so far, we've had great luck with I think we've done four or five conversions, I think, in the last couple months. And then, some before that, but it just seemed like all of a sudden
We got a bunch of them.
we got two more in there now that are.
Did mine, great.
And the alternator brackets are $63. So,
And then you get rid of,
honestly, the cheapest part of an Aerostar at this point.
do you get rid of the idler pulley at that point?
Yes. So the idler pulley on a Lycoming engine, the whole assembly is about $2,700, and we get rid of that and replace it with a $63 part.
Yeah.
So we haven't had one break, but if they did it,
Yeah, $63. Yes, sir.
But are you having problems with batteries, getting batteries?
We were at one point. Right now, they're available.
Well, I went to Aircraft Spruce to look at their batteries. The batteries that were in the airplane were in there since 2009.
You had the double battery in yours?
Double batteries
Okay.
in the tail. And about 6 months ago, they died, but I was using battery minder on it all the time.
Right.
And it was up. But I happened to be walking through Ace Hardware. I said, that looks exactly like the batteries we got in the back, two 12-volt batteries. And I looked at every little detail of it, and then I checked it with my old battery.
But that's not legal.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
I know Joel was
They're-
working on
they're
trying
less-
to put some lithium batteries.
They
in
were
there.
just under $100 a piece, and then Aircraft Spruce was 200 and something, And I looked at every single little detail. It's the same damn battery. I don't care. It puts out 12
You
volts.
can't buy it from Ace Aerospace?
Go ahead, Joel.
so some of the problems with the batteries is they have, they go through certifications for heat and stuff like that, especially if they catch fire. That's one of the problems with the lithium iron phosphate batteries, is they're having trouble certifying the 24-volt ones because of I forget what it's some fire test basically.
Right.
And they just kind of burn a little warmer than they
A
should.
little warmer. Them things were really hot.
The volts are fine, but half the batteries, they're 9 pounds, and we're testing them in the experimental aircraft. And they're 9 pounds and about, quite a bit smaller. And most of the actual battery is actually the insulation around it. So what you're seeing, it feels really light because half of what you're actually seeing is actually just insulation.
Just insulation.
For that fire. So I don't know if I'd be, putting a launch tractor battery in my, 300-mile-an-hour airplane, at 20.
Well, I'm surprised you still have the 12-volt batteries. Almost everybody has switched to the single 24-volt.
No,
Right.
the tail section where you put the battery is no room for anything other than.
Oh, yeah, no, you can fit the
Well, you take
single 24-volt.
you take out the brackets.
But we just did a battery relocation in one and moved it up to the shelf in the trunk there. And it moved, I think it moved the CG, it had like almost 2 inches.
I wanted to put a Tesla battery in there, but nobody went for it. So.
Lithium-ion batteries available to them.
Yeah.
So Jimmy,
I have a question.
Your company that
Go ahead.
speaking of illegal, you want to give us an update on your air conditioning system?
No,
Okay.
illegal.
Yeah.
I changed the air conditioning system in my personal airplane. Because air comp pissed me off.
Yeah.
They really did. I called them up and told them, I said, I was looking I think I was just looking for a bearing. And they said, oh no, we can only sell a whole compressor. Yeah, I said, well, the problem with the electric AC and the Aerostar, there's no high and low protection. And he said, yes, there is. And I said, no, there's not. I said, I work on these things all the time. There's no high and low protection on the electric system. And the engine driven, you buy from Jim, there is. But there's no protection on the electric system. So I got mad at him, and I called the guy
Hey
out.
guys, listen, please.
I called the guy out in, I think Phoenix, and I bought one that went into a motorhome, or, a boat, or you can put it in whatever you want. And I put that in my airplane. So it brought everything up into the 2000s. It's got high and low protection. I used everything when I did mine. I cut the airbox up and used the evaporator and the condenser. Condenser is in the back of my airplane, but it's a regular automotive style condenser, and it's got a regular automotive style condenser fan on it. And I can go down to O'Reilly or Advanced and buy one of them for $110 or $120.
So the compressor and the motor that drives the compressor are all one unit.
It's all one unit in this
Just
one.
like a refrigerator.
Yeah.
I think 12 volt.
24 volt.
It's a 24 volt system. I think it's got capacitors that bring it down to 12 volt. Because I think it is a 12 volt.
Yeah,
But you can buy it as a 24 volt, and it comes with the
step down.
But it's been working for 2 years. I haven't had any issues.
So are you gonna STC it or?
Well, we're gonna try. The guy up in Spruce Creek, what's his name? Norm Howe.
Norm Howe.
Was going to try to work on getting us an STC for it.
That'd be wonderful.
But I'm sure we can get a one-time approval, but I just never bothered. It's my airplane.
What's the, is the amp draw the same?
Huge? No. And it's 3 pounds lighter. When I took everything out, I weighed it. And I weighed all the stuff I was putting back in. It was 3 pounds lighter. Throws a tick less on the amperage. And it cools as good, if not better. So, and like I said, I've not had any issues with it. I've had it for over 2 years now.
Good news.
The only downside that I saw, if we're going to use the stock evaporators, which I'm going to try in the next one, is they're using a 6 and an 8 on the stock stuff as far as hose sizes.
Okay.
This one had instead it's a 6 and a 10, I think, going to the evaporator. So I have to do something to readapt.
Low pressure side and high pressure side.
So you took the compressor off the engine and your
No, mine was electric.
Is it?
Mine was electric, so I took the whole electric system out and put a brand new electric system in. But it brought us up into the 2000s. I mean, it's got everything it's supposed to have.
So it's behind the baggage compartment?
Yes. But Jim's engine-driven system has high and low protection. But
It's talking about, if the Freon leaks out and the pressure goes down, you want the system to shut off so it doesn't.
well, also on the high side,
Yeah.
And on the high side,
we just had this issue on an airplane with electric AC in it. The condenser fan motor quit, and the high side went through the roof and took the compressor out with it. So we had to put a condenser fan motor in it and a compressor. And the high and low protection would fix that.
it goes over about, if it goes to 350, then it may blow the plug out of the dryer to protect.
The safety plug.
Yeah, it's like a safety plug on the dryer. But we put in a high pressure switch and a low pressure switch.
Right.
So if it gets too high, if it gets too low, it just shuts
Shuts
off.
it off.
It doesn't ruin everything, and then the mechanic can sort it out later.
Well, like I said, that's what we just did on this one that we just did. The condenser fan motor went bad. High side went way up and took the compressor out. So we had to change the condenser fan motor, which was the last one I had, and the compressor to get his AC working.
The L134 still?
Yeah.
SPC on that, I wouldn't think, all you have to do is have drawings of everything. You have to have what's called conformity. Here's our drawing, you get the vendor parts in, they can come from automotive or wherever. You're going to inspect them and make sure they're the same.
But the only problem that I have with the AC I put in my airplane is crash testing, because the condenser it's a big condenser. It's about that big and about that high. I made brackets and put it in the back.
So you pull the loads on it, make sure it takes 6 G's forward or 9 G's forward. And it's not, not difficult for an auxiliary system to put something in like that.
And it's only in the back. I ain't gonna hit nobody in the head.
Yeah, you just have to go through the process.
Yeah.
Conforming, like the next one you get in, is it the same? Well, if it meets the drawing, you have to have somebody inspect it.
Right.
Generally, it's the right one, it meets our drawing, it's already approved, okay, you can put it in.
And would an engineering report or calculations suffice for the?
You have to get with the FAA and get a project number and they might take 6 months to get back to you to say, okay, here's your project number, now you have to march through the process, okay, we're gonna have drawings of everything. Okay, and then you have to have somebody like an engineering DER say, yes, the drawings match the part. Okay, that's step one. Then you have to get the parts in, and they all have to be inspected to match the drawing.
Yeah.
Okay, because the FAA wants to know, okay, what is it you're really putting in here? How do we define this? Well, it's a drawing, and that drawing's been, yea, verily, that matches the part. Okay, so, I mean, there's a lot of things on any airplane that isn't necessarily aircraft quality, but if it's an auxiliary system,
Yeah.
you can get it approved.
Well, I think we can get a one-time field approval for air conditioning.
Sometimes.
But the real problem that I have is we can't get condenser fan motors for the old style Keith Black system. So the only other option would be to put the other style condenser and condenser fan motor in. But we'd have to go through FAA to get that approved.
I mean, the condenser fan motor we used originally was just a commercial 24 volt, 6,000 RPM motor.
Yeah, but you said you can't get them anymore either.
Well, the plant burned down.
Well, that's what they're saying about the Aeroshell number 5 grease. The plant burnt down, we ain't gonna make no more of that.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, you should be able to get that approved. It's just you have to go through this process.
Right.
Not a PMA part, it's a.
The one that's in my airplane, I really don't care about.
I kind of had that attitude. I said, when I was flying, I talked to the chief pilot of Boeing, and I said, hey, I've got this experimental jet, I'm using a letter of authorization to fly it. He said, yeah. I said, do I really need a letter of authorization to fly this airplane? He said, well, it's your own airplane, isn't it? I said, yeah. He said, no, I don't think you need that. He said, oh, he called me back and said, oh, yeah, no, you gotta have it.
And I found anymore with the FAA, even when you get a ferry permit, they're so worried about their job. They don't want to do anything out of the realm. Like I went and looked at 601NG up in Portland. So I called them up in Portland Fisdale, and I said, can I get a ferry permit if I put a set of props on this thing and fly it back? He said, no, you didn't do the AD. I said, well, I talked to the guy that wrote the AD, and he said that he wrote a special issuance. He said, these things ain't going to quit in the first 50 hours. Ain't going to happen. Anyway, I said, what if I put motors and props on it? Because I had motors and props sitting on the floor. He said, no, we have to come out and inspect the temporary repairs you're going to do on the belly to fly it home. I said, you know what? I don't need it. Too far from home. I'm not going to worry about it. But it's crazy what the FAA cares about anymore. I mean, all they care about is their job.
Cover their ass.
And they don't.
Can't you blame them? I mean, you got a mortgage, you got a family to feed, and
Yeah, I can blame them.
the threat comes in that hey, you're gonna lose your job. You screw up one time.
They never get so I can blame them.
I can't. I'm sorry. If I worked under those kind of pressures, I'd quit.
Well, that's the answer as well. You don't like working for the FAA, quit.
Yeah. But you know,
Well, they need
You
legal.
know, just like Jim said, to put an air conditioner in an airplane. Look at all the hoops you got to jump through just to put an air conditioner in.
sure.
Yeah, they don't want to approve anything.
No.
Whatever they approve, now they're on the hook.
Right.
So it's easiest to just say, no, you can't do that, and move on.
That's the same thing with a ferry permit.
In fact,
You know, I got a couple ferry permits, and they said, well, call me as soon as you get to LaBelle. You know, from Marathon to LaBelle. Call me as soon as you get to LaBelle.
Well, they keep getting sued, but the problem is,
What's that?
the FAA gets sued when there's ever an accident. They drag their ass in there, so they got to defend that, and that's a problem.
years ago, Jim talked about, or we talked to Jim about changing and updating the POH. Well, the problem with doing that is it creates a liability for Aerostar aircraft all over again. It starts all over, right? Right. Okay, so you can see why nobody wants to do anything.
Well, even getting the winglets approved for the Aerostar, Jim went and had to jump through hoops to get that done. It took longer to do that than it did to get the airplane approved back in the 60s.
Right.
It took 4 years to get winglets approved.
And Ted started that project in 63 and he had more flying in, what,
And
67?
part of that was, they said, well, if you're gonna do that, you're gonna have to do a fatigue analysis on the wing. Well, that was never required when the airplane was certified. And we said, that's gonna cost a fortune, 250, maybe 500 grand to do that. And that's not worth doing, and yeah, but you're gonna have to do it. And kept talking to them, and went to the different, Kansas City, certification office. And then we went back to Seattle and had to work through Seattle, and finally, we said to them, well, that's completely impractical. And the FAA has books that are their guidance handbook. And the guy looks through his book and he says, impractical? Well, if it's impractical, you don't have to do it. That was the key word. So remember, if you ever want to get something approved, and they say, no, you're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that.
Well,
You can't tell them it costs too much, because they don't care what it costs.
No.
But if you say that's impractical, they look in their book and they say, oh, impractical. If it's impractical, they don't have to do that. That's the only reason we got.
Yeah, do it on your forehead. That's absurd, though. It really is. That's just our new government and our new way of thinking.
I don't think it's
everybody wants to sue
I think it's
everybody.
been that way for years and years and years.
Well, we had a guy over there that's been there for 30 years.
Spokane, the guy in Spokane.
Seattle, and he came over, and Dick Simonson, and I remember my son was doing the drop test on the nose gear for the gross weight increase. We had this sled with 2,500 pounds of lead weight in it, and we're going to drop it down, and we had it instrumented with strain gauges, and we had to be less than, it had to absorb the shock, not transmit more than 3 G's into the airframe. So the guy comes over to witness the test, and we had a chain hoist for hoisting the lead weight up, and we're getting ready to drop the thing. He says, okay, got your computer on, yeah, everything. Pull that thing, it goes, wham! Drops down, and my son looks at it, he says, see, it went to 2.8 G.